She laughed at my handmade gift in front of everyone. If you can't even afford an Audi, you'll never be on my level. Enjoy your small life. I said, "You're right," and walked away. A month later, the courthouse called, but not for me. All right, Reddit, buckle up because this one's been sitting in my chest for a while, and my buddy finally convinced me to post it. My girlfriend of 2 years humiliated me at a fancy dinner, called me worthless in front of her bougie friends, and told me to enjoy my small life. So I did exactly that, walked away without a word. Then karma came knocking on her door with a federal badge and a warrant. I'm Nathan, 31 years old, and I've been a jeweler for over a decade. Not the mall kiosk kind or the fancy boutique kind. I own a small workshop on a quiet street downtown where the afternoon sunlight hits the display glass just right. My hands are permanently scarred from years of polishing metal and working with silver. The calluses never fully heal because I'm always working on something new. Dust from the workshop never fully leaves my clothes, no matter how many times I wash them. My truck always has a faint smell of metal polish that I've stopped noticing years ago. But honestly, I don't mind any of it. There's something real about this work that I've never found anywhere else. Every piece I make carries a little bit of me in it. Patience, precision, whatever you want to call it. When you spend 12 hours shaping a raw piece of metal into something beautiful, you leave part of yourself behind in the work. That's the kind of thing my parents taught me growing up in our modest house on the east side of town. My mom was a seamstress who could turn a cheap bolt of fabric into something that looked like it cost 5 times the price. She worked out of our basement, had clients all over the county who swore her alterations were better than any fancy tailor downtown. My dad was a mechanic who kept the same beater truck running for 22 years through sheer stubbornness and skill. When that engine finally gave out, he actually teared up, said goodbye to it like an old friend. They raised me to believe that what you can do with your hands is a kind of wealth that can't be stolen or bought. Nobody can repo your abilities. Nobody can foreclose on your talent. Banks don't care about skills, but skills don't care about banks either. That's the trade-off. I learned early that you can make something beautiful out of what others overlook. The broken necklace someone was going to throw away. The tarnished ring that hadn't been cleaned in decades. The bent metal that just needed patience and pressure to straighten out. Maybe that's why I fell in love with metalwork when I was 16. My uncle had a friend named Harold who ran a small jewelry repair shop, and I needed a summer job. First day I walked in, Harold handed me a tarnished silver bracelet and a polishing cloth. Told me not to stop until I could see my reflection in it. Took me 4 hours. My arms were burning. My fingers were cramped. But when I finally saw my face staring back at me from that metal, something clicked. This was it. This was what I wanted to do. Metal is stubborn like people. It resists you at first. You can't force it to do what you want. It needs heat and pressure before it'll cooperate. And even then it fights back. But once you understand its nature, once you learn to work with it instead of against it, you can shape it into anything imaginable. Spent years learning the craft from Harold after that summer. Dude was 73 when I started, and could still spot a fake stone from across the room. His eyes weren't great for reading anymore, but put a gemstone in front of him, and he'd tell you exactly what it was, where it probably came from, and whether it was worth a damn. He taught me that the difference between a craftsman and a hack is patience. Anyone can rush through a piece. Slap some metal together, call it jewelry, ship it out. It takes discipline to slow down and do it right. To sand the edges smooth even when nobody will notice. To polish the backside even though it'll never see daylight. Because you'll know. And that knowledge either makes you proud or makes you a fraud. Harold retired when I was 24. His hands had finally gotten too shaky for the detailed work, and his daughter wanted him to move to Florida, where she could keep an eye on him. He offered to sell me the shop at a price that was basically a gift. Said he'd rather see it go to someone who gave a damn than watch some corporate chain turn it into another cookie-cutter operation. By the time I was 28, the workshop was mine-free and clear. Small but loyal customer base. Enough saved up to live comfortably without worrying about rent or emergencies. Not rich by any stretch, but stable in a way that most people my age couldn't claim. I fixed heirloom pieces for old couples who'd been married 50 years. Restored engagement rings that had been passed down through generations. Crafted custom pieces for nervous guys who wanted something unique for the woman they loved. Repaired antique jewelry that most shops would have declared unfixable just because it required actual skill. It was good work. Honest work. The kind where you go home tired but satisfied because you actually made something with your hands instead of just pushing papers around a desk or staring at spreadsheets until your eyes bled. My buddy Kevin used to joke that I was living the dream on a budget. No boss breathing down my neck, no corporate politics, no performance reviews. Just me and the metal and the soft hum of equipment. Then I met Megan Ashford, and everything got complicated. 2 years ago, a buddy of mine who runs a catering company needed an extra set of hands for a charity gala. Some corporate event at a fancy hotel downtown, where people paid $500 a plate to feel good about themselves. I wasn't even supposed to be there as a guest. I was helping set up tables and arrange centerpieces because my friend was short-staffed and offered me $100 for 3 hours of work. Easy money. That's when I saw her. Megan was standing near the bar in this crimson dress that probably cost more than my monthly rent. Designer heels, diamond earrings, hair done up like she'd stepped out of a magazine. She had this way of laughing that made it seem like the whole room belonged to her. Confident. Magnetic. The kind of presence that makes you look twice even when you know you shouldn't. I was arranging dessert platters when she wandered over. Started asking questions about the food, then somehow pivoted to asking what I actually did for a living. When I told her I was a jeweler, her eyes lit up like I'd said something fascinating instead of ordinary. An artist with rough hands, she said, reaching out to run her fingers over my calloused palm without asking permission. That's rare these days. Everyone I know works in offices staring at computers. Looking back, I should have recognized that comment for what it was. She wasn't attracted to me as a person. She was attracted to the idea of me, the novelty of dating someone different from her usual crowd of finance bros and trust fund heirs. But at the time, all I saw was a beautiful woman who seemed genuinely interested in what I did for a living. We exchanged numbers that night, started dating a few weeks later. At first, things were actually pretty great. She'd come by my workshop after her workday ended, sitting on the worn leather stool in the corner and watching me shape molten silver into something delicate. She said she loved the smell of the workshop, that mix of metal polish and residual heat that I'd stopped noticing years ago. Said it felt real compared to the sterile offices she spent her days in. I made her a bracelet during our second month together. Simple design, nothing flashy. Just clean silver links with a small clasp I'd shaped by hand. She wore it every single day for months. Would touch it during dinner like a good luck charm. Back then, she used to say stuff like, "I love that your world is simple, Nathan. It feels real compared to all the fake people I deal with at work. Everyone there is playing games and angling for promotions. You just make beautiful things. There's something pure about that." I believed her. Why wouldn't I? She seemed genuine. She seemed different from the trust fund types I'd always avoided. She made me feel like my life had value even if it didn't come with a six-figure salary and a corner office. But people change. Or maybe they just remember who they always wanted to be. Megan's father owned Ashford Holdings, a luxury import company that dealt in high-end cars, watches, fragrances. The kind of business that makes money by selling the idea of class to people desperate to feel important. Old money mixed with new money ambition. The Ashfords had been wealthy for 3 generations and never let anyone forget it. When Megan got promoted to a management position at her father's company about 8 months into our relationship, something shifted. It wasn't immediate. More like watching a slow leak gradually drain a pool. New clothes started appearing in her closet. Designer labels I'd never heard of, but apparently cost more than my monthly utilities. New friends started filling her weekends. People with last names that sounded like law firms and attitudes that matched. New dinner reservations at places where the appetizers cost more than my grocery bill, and the portions were small enough to make you wonder if they were joking. Suddenly, every story she told started with a brand name. "Oh, I was talking to Brittany at the Cartier event and she mentioned her new place in the Hamptons. Have you ever been to the Hamptons, Nathan? It's absolutely gorgeous in the summer. Did I tell you about the Porsche showcase last weekend? Richard from corporate bought the new 911 Turbo on the spot. Just walked in and wrote a check. Can you imagine? We should really go to that new French restaurant everyone's talking about. Sophie says the chef trained in Paris, and the waiting list is 3 months long. But her father knows the owner. At first, I didn't mind. She had her circle, I had mine. No relationship requires you to share every interest with your partner. I figured she'd vent about her fancy work events, enjoy her networking dinners, and then come home to our normal life together. But I started noticing the way she looked at me was changing. Not with affection anymore, with calculation. Like she was constantly measuring me against some invisible standard and finding me lacking every single time. The comments started small, almost gentle if you didn't listen closely enough. Why don't you open a real store instead of that little studio? You're talented, Nathan, but nobody's going to discover you if you don't put yourself out there. You need visibility. You need a presence. You should hire a PR firm. Get your name in some magazines. Network with the right people. Talent is worthless without connections in this world. You could design for high-end brands if you dressed like someone who belonged in that world. First impressions matter. People judge books by covers, whether we like it or not. Her words stung, not because they were cruel, but because they were casual. Like she'd already decided I wasn't enough, and was just waiting for me to catch up to her conclusion. Like the verdict was already in, and these were just closing arguments. Her friends were even worse. Megan's inner circle was this pack of trust fund princesses who treated curiosity about regular people like some kind of charity work. They'd ask questions about my job with this condescending smile, like they were humoring a child showing them a crayon drawing. "So you make jewelry with your hands?" Brittany said once during a dinner party Megan had dragged me to. She tilted her head and pursed her lips like I'd just told her I churned butter for a living. "That's adorable. Very artisanal. My family has a designer in Milan who handles all our custom pieces. He trained at the Accademia di Belle Arti and only takes 5 clients a year. The waiting list is absolutely insane." Another friend, a woman named Tiffany, who I swear was named ironically, once asked me if I made engagement rings for normal people. The way she said normal made it clear she meant poor. I smiled through all of it because Megan was sitting right there. She'd squeeze my hand under the table and whisper, "Don't take it personally, babe. They don't mean anything by it. They're just not used to people like you. People like me." She said it like I was a different species, like I was an exhibit at a zoo that her friends were generously tolerating. But here's the thing that took me way too long to realize. She never actually defended me. Never once told her friends to back off or show some respect. Never corrected their assumptions or challenged their condescension. Because deep down, she agreed with them. She just wasn't ready to admit it out loud yet. By our second year together, we were basically living parallel lives that occasionally intersected. She spent her weekends at rooftop lounges, gallery openings, charity galas, and exclusive tasting events where she networked with people who introduced themselves by listing what they owned. I spent mine bent over my workbench, sketching designs and restoring pieces for customers who actually appreciated craftsmanship. She'd come home from her events smelling like expensive perfume and catered hors d'oeuvres, full of stories about someone's yacht or someone's villa or someone's ridiculous purchase. I'd be covered in metal dust with fresh calluses on my fingers, thinking about the wedding ring I'd finally gotten right after 6 attempts. We were becoming 2 different people, but I kept trying to hold on to the woman I'd met at that gala, the one who said she found beauty in rough hands, the one who wore the simple bracelet I'd made her like it was precious, the one who seemed to actually see me instead of looking through me. But that woman was either gone or had never really existed in the first place. Then the comments got worse, more direct, less disguised as helpful suggestions. "When we get married, we'll need to get you a proper car. That truck of yours isn't exactly impressive when we pull up to events. It's embarrassing, Nathan. You should really start dressing like your work costs something." First impressions matter in my world. People notice these things and they judge you for them. You can't live paycheck to paycheck forever, love. Not if we want a real future together. Not if we want the life we deserve. She always said we, but she meant you. I wasn't struggling. I made enough to live comfortably, save for the future, and do work I actually believed in. I owned my workshop outright, had 0 debt, could take a month off if I needed to and not worry about bills. But in Megan's world, comfortable wasn't success. It was failure dressed up as contentment. It was settling for less when you should be hungry for more. It was admitting defeat by refusing to participate in a race I'd never wanted to run. Still, I wanted to believe we could find middle ground. I loved her, or at least I loved who she used to be. So when our second anniversary came around, I decided to remind her of who we were before all the noise, before levels and luxury blurred everything between us. I spent 2 weeks crafting a necklace by hand. Silver chain, delicately engraved with twin wings meeting at the center around a small ruby. 2 halves of the same piece, hers and mine, united. It was the most personal thing I'd ever made for anyone. She didn't know how many nights I stayed late at the workshop, how many times I burned my fingers smoothing every curve until it was perfect, how often I scrapped the design and started completely over because it wasn't quite right. I must have gone through 6 different versions before I was satisfied with every single detail. The wings represented us taking flight together. The ruby was for passion and love. The silver was for something lasting and honest. Every element meant something. I thought maybe it would bring her back to the simplicity she used to love. Remind her why she fell for the guy with rough hands instead of the guys with trust funds. Show her that some gifts can't be bought off a shelf no matter how much money you have. But looking back, that version of her probably only ever existed in my imagination. I was in love with a ghost, a memory of someone who might have never been real. By then, I wasn't the artist she admired. I was the man she tolerated while waiting for something better to come along. Our second anniversary fell on a Friday night in October. The weather had just turned cold enough to require jackets, and the city was starting to put up holiday decorations, even though Thanksgiving hadn't happened yet. Megan wanted to celebrate properly, which in her vocabulary meant reservations at some rooftop restaurant with a view of the city skyline, dress code that probably cost more than my rent, and the kind of menu that didn't list prices because if you had to ask, you couldn't afford it. I figured, okay, it's our anniversary. Let her pick the spot. I wore my best suit, the one I'd bought for my cousin's wedding 3 years earlier. Still fit, still looked good, even if it wasn't designer. Brought the velvet box with the necklace I'd spent weeks perfecting, tucked safely in my jacket pocket. Rehearsed what I'd say when I gave it to her. But when we arrived at the restaurant, I realized this night wasn't about us at all. It was about her. 5 of her friends were already seated at a long table on the terrace, laughing loud enough for the entire rooftop to hear. Designer bags hung from every chair. The collective net worth at that table could probably fund a small country. Brittany spotted me first and grinned in that predatory way that always made my skin crawl. "There's the man of the hour," she announced. Except the hour apparently wasn't about me. It was about Megan's promotion. Her official move into upper management at Ashford Holdings, a celebration she'd conveniently forgotten to mention, would include her entire social circle. "Surprise," Megan said, kissing my cheek like nothing was wrong. "I thought it'd be fun to celebrate with everyone. The more the merrier, right?" Everyone meaning her friends. The polished, designer-wearing crowd who treated people like accessories and conversations like competitions. The same people who asked if I made jewelry for normal people. I smiled and tried to be gracious. I'd come to celebrate with her after all, even if the terms had changed without my input. Ordered sparkling water since I was driving, listened to their chatter about designer vacations and art auctions, and new sports cars someone's father had just imported. One of them spent 10 minutes describing the interior of a private jet she'd taken to Aspen. Another complained about her housekeeper using the wrong kind of organic cleaning products. Tiffany mentioned that her father was thinking about buying a minor league baseball team just for fun. Megan fit perfectly among them. Confident, loud, magnetic. Same energy as the night I'd met her, except now I understood what I was actually looking at. I sat there feeling like a visitor in someone else's world, like I'd accidentally wandered into a party I wasn't invited to, and everyone was too polite to ask me to leave. My suit that had felt perfectly fine an hour ago suddenly seemed cheap. My hands with their calluses and tiny scars seemed out of place against the white tablecloth. When the main course arrived, I decided it was time. I reached into my jacket pocket and pulled out the velvet box, placed it gently on the white tablecloth in front of Megan. The chatter died down immediately. Everyone's eyes locked onto that small black box, like it was a grenade with the pin pulled. Megan looked at it, eyebrow raised. "What's this?" I smiled, trying to ignore the pounding in my chest. "A gift for you. Happy anniversary." Brittany leaned in and stage whispered loud enough for the whole table, and probably neighboring tables too. God, is this what I think it is? I opened the box. Inside, the silver necklace glimmered under the warm restaurant lights, twin wings meeting at a ruby the color of sunset. Every curve I'd spent weeks perfecting caught the light and threw it back like tiny captured stars. "I made this for you," I said. 2 wings, one for each year we've been together. It's one of a kind. There's nothing else like it in the world. Megan stared at the necklace. The table went silent. Then she started laughing. Not a happy laugh. Not a surprised laugh. A mocking laugh. The kind that starts in the throat and spreads like poison. The kind designed to make someone feel small. "Oh, Nathan." She picked up the necklace, dangling it between 2 fingers like it was a dead mouse she'd found in her purse. "It's cute, really. Very sweet of you to make something with your hands." Her friends exchanged glances. Brittany covered her mouth with manicured fingers to hide her smirk. Tiffany actually rolled her eyes. "But here's the thing," Megan continued, her voice getting louder. Loud enough that other diners were starting to look. "If you can't even afford an Audi for your girlfriend, you'll never be on my level. I mean, a handmade necklace? For our 2nd anniversary?" She dropped it back in the box like it was worthless garbage. "You should probably just stay in your little world, Nathan. Enjoy your small life. Because this?" She gestured at the necklace, then at me. "This isn't going to cut it for someone like me." Her friends snickered behind their glasses. The waiter who'd been approaching our table froze mid-step, clearly unsure whether to intervene or pretend he hadn't heard anything. The entire terrace went quiet. Neighboring tables were openly staring. I could feel dozens of eyes on me, waiting to see how I'd react to being publicly humiliated by my own girlfriend on our anniversary. Here's the thing about moments like that. You have 2 choices. You can make a scene, argue, defend yourself, and give everyone the drama they're hoping for. Or you can refuse to play the game entirely. My face didn't move. I didn't argue. I didn't plead. I didn't raise my voice or flip the table or give anyone the satisfaction of seeing me break. I just nodded slowly, reached across the table and closed the velvet box with a soft click, slipped it back into my jacket pocket. Then I stood up, put on my coat, and said quietly, "You're right." Megan blinked, clearly expecting a different reaction. "Wait, what?" "You're right," I repeated. "Enjoy your level." Then I walked away. Didn't look back. Didn't respond to her calling my name. Just walked through the restaurant, past the staring diners, down the elevator, out to my truck in the parking garage, and drove home in complete silence. That was the last time I saw Megan Ashford in person. For her, it was probably just another way to show off in front of her friends. Another opportunity to prove she'd outgrown the guy with rough hands. Just content for whatever group chat she'd tell the story in later. Another anecdote about the boyfriend who couldn't keep up. For me, it was the moment something inside finally stopped trying. I spent the next few weeks doing what I always do when life gets complicated. I went back to work. My buddy Kevin came by a few days after the dinner. He runs a small landscaping business, and we've been friends since high school. Good dude, calls it like he sees it. He'd heard about the breakup through the grapevine and showed up at my workshop with takeout containers and zero filter. Let me get this straight, he said, leaning against my workbench while I sorted through some tools. You spent 2 weeks making this girl a custom necklace, burned your fingers about 50 times getting it perfect, and she laughed at you in front of her whole crew because it wasn't expensive enough? That's the summary, yeah. And you just said you're right and walked out? Didn't see the point in arguing. Kevin shook his head slowly, this grin spreading across his face. Dude, that's the coldest thing I've ever heard. She's probably losing her mind right now trying to figure out why you didn't beg. I shrugged and kept organizing. Nothing I said would have changed anything. She'd already decided who I was to her. Kevin laughed and raised his soda. To small lives lived well, my friend. I'll take it. Life went back to normal. Wake up, go to the workshop, create things, go home. I didn't stalk Megan's social media, didn't ask mutual acquaintances about her. Just let her exist in whatever world she'd chosen and focused on my own. Then, about a month later, my phone rang with a number I didn't recognize. County Courthouse. Mr. Cole? This is Officer Bradley from the County Courthouse. Are you available to answer a few questions regarding a Miss Megan Ashford? For a second, I thought I'd misheard her. Megan? What about her? There's an active investigation involving her family's company, Ashford Holdings. The officer's voice was professional, neutral. Your name appeared in several financial records connected to her personal accounts. We're verifying the legitimacy of those connections. My stomach dropped. What kind of connection? Jewelry invoices, she replied. Transactions listed under a company called Cole Artisan Studio. Does that ring a bell? It did, except that wasn't my company name. My workshop was registered under my actual business name, not whatever Cole Artisan Studio was supposed to be. I'd never heard of Cole Artisan Studio in my life. I don't have a company by that name, I said carefully. And Megan never purchased anything from me professionally. Everything I made for her was personal. That's what we suspected, Officer Bradley said. But since your identity was used in documentation, we'll need an official statement to confirm you're not involved in what's being investigated. I agreed to come in the next morning. That night, I sat at my workbench staring at the half-finished ring I'd been working on for a customer. Her voice echoed in my head. If you can't even afford an Audi, you'll never be on my level. Curiosity got the better of me. I pulled out my phone and searched her name. The headlines were everywhere. Ashford Holdings under federal investigation for fraud and embezzlement. CEO and daughter, named in multi-million-dollar financial scheme. Assets, frozen pending trial as investigation expands. I scrolled through article after article, each one painting a picture of a company that had been cooking its books for years. Fake invoices, shell companies, money laundering disguised as legitimate business transactions. Apparently, the Ashfords had been billing phantom expenses through dozens of fake vendor accounts to inflate costs and hide profits from taxes. They'd been moving money through so many shell companies that untangling it all was going to take forensic accountants years. In one photo, Megan was leaving a courthouse wearing sunglasses and a beige coat, head down, posture hunched. The confidence completely gone from her body language. The same woman who'd laughed at me in front of a crowded restaurant now looked like she was trying to disappear into the pavement. When I went to the courthouse the next day, I brought everything. Tax filings, receipts, bank statements, registration documents for my actual business, client records going back 5 years. Anything that could prove I had nothing to do with whatever scheme the Ashfords had been running. The investigator was an older guy with reading glasses and the tired patience of someone who'd seen every kind of financial crime imaginable. He went through my paperwork methodically, asking occasional clarifying questions, but mostly just reviewing documents in silence. After about an hour, he leaned back and gave me a small smile. "You're clean, Mr. Cole," he said. "Looks like someone used your name and identity to file fake invoices, probably to cover the movement of funds between accounts. It happens more often than you'd think in cases like this. Someone they know personally becomes an unwitting front for fraudulent transactions." I signed my statement and left. But walking out of that courthouse, I couldn't shake one thought. She'd used me. My name, my identity, the person she'd publicly dismissed as too small to matter. Apparently, I mattered enough to be useful when she needed a cover for illegal activity. 2 days later, the story exploded nationwide. Megan's father was formally indicted. The company's accounts were frozen entirely. Property was seized, including multiple luxury vehicles, vacation homes, investment accounts, even the art on the walls of their offices. The media swarmed the Ashford family like sharks circling wounded prey. Every tabloid wanted the story. Every news channel ran segments about the fall of a dynasty, and there she was in every photo. Megan Ashford, looking smaller and quieter, and more lost than I'd ever seen her. Gone was the confident woman who'd laughed at my handmade gift. In her place was someone watching her entire identity crumble in real time. Even her white Audi, the symbol of the level I'd supposedly never reach, had been impounded as evidence since it was technically a company asset registered to the business. That evening, I went back to my workshop. I hadn't sketched anything new since the breakup. The creative well had been dry for weeks, but sitting there in the quiet, something stirred. Not anger, not revenge, just clarity. I opened my sketchbook and started drawing. A familiar design emerged under my pencil. 2 wings, like the ones on the necklace I'd made for her. But these wings were fractured down the middle. The ruby at the center was split in half, broken but still beautiful. I called the design the Fall of Vanity, spent 3 weeks bringing it to life, poured everything into it. When it was finished, I submitted the piece to a regional jewelry showcase, not for fame, just closure. A few weeks later, I got a call from a private collector in New York. "I saw your piece online," she said. "It's stunning. What inspired it?" "A lesson I needed to learn," I told her. She laughed softly. "That's rare in art these days. Would you be interested in showing more of your work?" That conversation changed everything. Within a month, a small collection built around the Fall of Vanity debuted in a boutique gallery in Manhattan. Photos circulated online. Articles got written about emotional craftsmanship. Orders started coming in faster than I could fill them. My little workshop suddenly had a wait list. Customers who'd found me through the showcase wanted custom pieces. Collectors reached out about future designs. Magazines wanted interviews. The collection sold out within weeks. A design magazine ran a 2-page feature on my work. I moved to a larger studio a few months later. Brighter space, better equipment, room for an apprentice I was training. My mom saw my name in print and kept the magazine on her coffee table like it was a trophy. Then one afternoon, about 8 months after the dinner that ended everything, my phone rang. Unknown number. "Nathan? It's me, Megan." She sounded different. Slower. Fragile. "I saw your work in that gallery feature," she said. "It's beautiful. Thanks." Long pause. Then quietly, "I wanted to call and apologize. For everything. I don't expect forgiveness. I just needed to say it." Her voice cracked. "I lost everything, Nathan. The house, the cars, the company. Dad's still in court fighting charges. I'm living back with my mom now. And I keep thinking about that night at the restaurant. I stayed silent. You said you're right and just walked away," she continued. "I laughed about it at the time. Told everyone how pathetic your exit was. But when everything fell apart, when everyone I thought was my friend disappeared overnight, I kept hearing those 2 words." She stopped, then whispered, "You were right. I was the small one." I looked at the ring I'd been polishing. A simple platinum band for a young couple who'd saved for months to afford it. "I hope you find peace, Megan." "I already have." We said goodbye. For real this time. Fast forward 6 months. The Fall of Vanity collection had grown into something bigger than I ever planned. 3 gallery shows in different cities. A feature in a national design magazine. Custom commissions from collectors who actually understood what handmade meant. The New York show alone brought in more inquiries than I'd gotten in the previous 5 years combined. People flew in from other states just to see the pieces in person. One collector from Boston bought 3 items on the spot and asked if I'd consider doing a private commission for his daughter's wedding. I hired 2 part-time assistants just to handle the administrative side. The actual crafting was still all me. That's the part I'd never outsource. But the emails, the scheduling, the shipping logistics, that stuff was burying me until I got help. The irony wasn't lost on me. Megan had always pushed me to expand, to hire people, to scale up, but she wanted me to do it for status, to prove something to people who'd never care about the work itself. Now I was doing it because I had to, because the demand was real, because people actually wanted what I made. Kevin came by the new studio one Saturday with takeout, same as always. "So let me get this straight," he said, looking around at the upgraded space. "Girl laughs at your necklace, calls you small time, and now you're selling pieces to rich people in Manhattan while she's living with her mom and dodging reporters? That's the summary, yeah." He shook his head slowly. "You know what's wild? She wanted you to be on her level. Turns out her level was built on fake invoices and fraud. Yours was built on actual skill." I shrugged. "Different foundations." He laughed. "Bro, her foundation was a federal crime. Yours was a workbench. I know which one I'd pick." "Fair point. The funniest part came 3 months after that. I was at a gallery event in the city, talking to a collector about a commission, when I spotted a familiar face across the room. Brittany, Megan's friend, the one who'd asked if I made jewelry for normal people. She was standing near the bar, looking at the display case that held my newest piece. When she turned and saw me, her face went through about 5 different emotions in 2 seconds. Shock, recognition, embarrassment, then this forced smile that didn't reach her eyes. "Nathan," she said, walking over, "I didn't know this was your work." "It is." She glanced around the room, the well-dressed collectors, the gallery owner talking to a journalist, the sold tags on half the pieces. "It's really impressive," she said. "You've done well for yourself." I smiled politely. "Thanks." She shifted her weight, clearly uncomfortable. "Listen, about that dinner, I know things got a little—" I held up my hand. "It's fine. Water under the bridge." She nodded quickly, relieved. "Of course. Well, I should probably—" She gestured vaguely and disappeared into the crowd. Didn't buy anything. Didn't talk to me again. Just left about 20 minutes later with her head down. Kevin heard about it later and nearly fell off his chair laughing. "She showed up at your gallery event? The same girl who said her family has a designer in Milan?" "Same one. And she didn't even buy anything?" "Nope. Just looked around and left." He wiped his eyes. "Bro, that's better than any revenge you could have planned." He wasn't wrong. Last month I got invited to a prestigious jewelry competition in Chicago. National level. The kind of thing that gets covered by industry publications and attended by serious collectors. The kind of event Megan probably would have wanted me to attend back when we were together, except I never would have been invited because I was just running a little studio. Funny how that works. I submitted a new piece. 2 wings again. Same shape, same symmetry. But this time, the ruby at the center wasn't split. It was whole. I called it Grace. It won first place. Beat out entries from jewelers with decades more experience in workshops, 10 times the size of mine. The judges' comments mentioned emotional depth and technical mastery. Said it was clearly the work of someone who understood that the best art comes from experience. They didn't know the half of it. I accepted the award, did a short interview for the industry magazine, and flew home the next day. When I got back to my workshop, there was a stack of messages waiting. New commissions, gallery inquiries, a request from a museum curator who wanted to feature my work in an upcoming exhibit. That necklace I made for Megan, the one with the twin wings she laughed at, I kept it. It's in a display case in my studio now, right next to my first place trophy from Chicago. Last week, a collector offered me $20,000 for it. Said it would be the centerpiece of her private collection. I turned her down. Some things aren't for sale. Megan wanted someone on her level. She got exactly what she asked for when her whole level collapsed. I just wanted someone who'd appreciate a gift made with burned fingers and late nights. Found her, by the way. By the IE, her name's Jade. She's an ER nurse who works 12-hour shifts and thinks my workshop smells like home. First time I made her something, she cried. Not because it was expensive, because she knew what it took to make it. We're moving in together next month. If you enjoyed this video, please hit that subscribe button. It really helps the channel and help us bring you more and better stories. Thanks.